Hey guys, welcome back and thank you so much for being here. Today we're starting a brand new painting and this is a really fun one. We're going to be painting this lighthouse scene together step by step using acrylics. The complete painting took me almost 7 hours. In this first part, we're going to focus on a lot of blending, color mixing, and getting our sky and clouds down. I'm sharing part 1 here with you completely free on YouTube. And if you want to continue painting with me, I put the rest of the full 6.5 hour lesson inside my Acrylic Like Oils Academy and it's available immediately. You'll get the reference photo, color guide, and the full commercial free lesson in there as well, so you can work from the same image I'm using. With that being said, let's get our paints ready and start working on this lighthouse. I'll be painting on a 14 by 18 studio canvas. I bought it straight from the store. It already has a gesso coat on it, so I don't need to add anything to it. You could use any size you'd like. If it's bigger, add a little more paint. If your canvas is smaller, obviously add a little less when we go into mixing. For brushes, we're going to use 2 of my M1 blending brushes. And then this is a size smaller and 2 blending brush. We're going to use the smaller brush to lay down the colors of paint, and then the bigger blending brush we're going to work dry to blend everything in. I like to have 2 of these in case I need to add another layer, or later on throughout the painting if I'm blending the bottom part, I'll pick up my other dry blending brush, right? It's always nice to have a backup just in case. I'll be using my 4-piece brush set. I'll show you what's inside. We have the number 8 and number 4. It's the same thing, just a size smaller. These brushes were great for little blends and little texture effects. We'll be using these a lot. And then we have a 1/2 inch flat brush and a 0 detail brush. For paint, I'll be using my 24 set of acrylics. I'll show you which colors from this set. Medium yellow, orange, scarlet red, phthalo blue, and burnt umber. If you have your lamp black, go ahead and use that, but I ran out of mine, so I'm going to mix my own using scarlet red, phthalo blue, and a little bit of burnt umber to create black. And I'll show you as I go into mixing paint, and whenever we need the black, I'll be mixing that. But to have lamp black, it's just a quicker way to add that darker color. If you have that, go ahead and use that. And finally, from my 5 set, we need titanium white. For palette, I'm going to use my palette paper here to mix my paint on, and then a palette knife, a jar of water somewhere next to your canvas, and some paper towels to wipe your palette knife and dab some of your brushes onto. And finally, if you have a hairdryer to dry your layers, go ahead and use that. If you don't, acrylics dry fast, which is actually a good thing because acrylic painting is all about layering. So the faster it dries, the more layers you could add on top. That's actually how I like to work, because if you won't let the background dry and then you apply that next layer, you're going to start peeling off paint and you're going to see canvas showing through. That's why I use this to speed up the process of drying time. And so once the background blend is done, we'll have it dry. Then we're going to add our first layers of our clouds, make sure it's dry, and then we're going to add another layer. And the more layers you add, the more solid it becomes, and the more softer you can create transition, the more layers you add, and it'll look softer and softer each time. And I'll be showing you guys every step, and hopefully you're able to catch these techniques. You could use any materials you have available, but if you are interested in my brushes and paints, they are available at ColorByFeliks.com for more details. Thank you guys for your support. So I like to start from the furthest distance and work my way up to whatever is closest to me. I think that's the easiest way to work. That way you don't have to go around, let's say the lighthouse. If we painted the lighthouse and detail it right in the middle, then you would have to go around the lighthouse, get the sky, the clouds in. And it's just, I've done that before. It's a pain to go over. It's a lot easier just to paint the background, get the clouds in, and then just paint over, right? Each time things get closer to you. That's how I like to work. So we're going to mix some color for the sky. There'll be some clouds. That'll be the next part. After we get the blend of the sky and we're happy with it, the next closest thing is the clouds. So we're going to have some fluffy ones right here, detail those, and once we're done with that, the next thing we'll focus on is getting the lighthouse and a sketch of our rocks up here. And then we're going to get the base of the ocean splashing onto the rocks. And then after that, we're going to start to go back and detail the lighthouse and start to come closer and closer. So we'll detail the rocks, the ocean, and then the rocks up that are closer here. And from there, you can take a step back and see if you need to adjust and correct. I would encourage you guys to work on each section and get it to the point where you're happy with it. Or if you are really happy with it, move on to the next section quickly. But if you are not sure, right, just keep moving on to the next section. And the more things that you add to your painting, the more the image becomes clear, and you can go back to those areas and correct later on as the painting progresses. And once you have the full layout, you can assess, step back. It'll be easier to catch the little mistakes or even correct certain things once you have everything laid out, right? That's the plan. Let's have fun and see what happens. I'm gonna cover about half of my canvas with the sky colors, so let's start mixing. Here's my palette, and I'm gonna start with titanium white. I like to start from the lightest colors to my darkest, and we're gonna add about, in the corner, about, I would say, a thumb amount of white here to the first one, and then each time we're gonna go a little less, so maybe half a thumb here, and we're gonna start with 4 colors, and then if we need to add, we'll add more. Okay, so each time go a little less. Okay, always close your lid so that paint won't dry out. And then next, we're gonna pick up medium yellow. We're gonna make sure we have those nice, beautiful sunset colors. So I'm gonna add a little more on this one, maybe a little bit more. Okay, like less than half a thumb amount. And then here, we're gonna close our lid. We're gonna pick up orange for the second color. We're gonna add also about the same amount like we did with yellow. And then from there, we're gonna add scarlet red. Very simple. We're gonna see what these colors give us, but a little bit. Red is a very strong color, so I'm gonna go a little bit less here than the orange. Okay, and then for this one, maybe we can add a little bit, maybe the same amount actually. So let's close our lid, and then phthalo blue. I'm trying to create a soft transition between warm colors to the cold colors. And then phthalo blue, a little bit here, okay, more red than blue. And then here we're gonna have more blue, phthalo blue, than the red and the white. And I will add one more color. I'm gonna add phthalo blue to the corner. About, I would say, let's add about almost a thumb amount of phthalo blue. And I'm gonna add actually a little bit of scarlet red as well, very small amount. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the lightest colors. So let's go ahead and work on the first one. And actually, I'm gonna actually make this color be on the orange side. I decided if I want my clouds closer to stand out, I need to make sure the background is a little darker. So I'm gonna add a little bit of orange to this one. All right, let's see what that gives us. I did also create a free color mixing guide available to download in the description below. Okay, and then pile it up like this, and then go on to your next color. And it should obviously be an orange, right? I'm not cleaning my palette knife. And I like the colors so far. They're nice sunset colors. Okay, there you go. That's good enough. And you can even take some of this orange, mix it in here. Let's see what that gives us. If it's too intense, we might actually have to add more white to it. And it is intense. You see, the transition here is kind of too dramatic, too quick. So I'm going to add a little more white to make sure it's more of a smoother transition. Okay, and I'm looking at this and I'm not liking it actually, because I want it to lean more towards the pink and the red. It's kind of leaning towards blue more. And that happens, and that's okay. What we're gonna do is add more scarlet to this one. And I'm gonna add a little more white, a little bit more. I want it to lean towards what I'm going to do so that it will transition better with color, I'm going to take part of this color out and move it to the side for now, so I won't be adding more paint, right? And I'm going to mix what I just added. I'm going to mix that and see what it gives me first. I'm trying to get almost like a red pink color, but have a little bit of that blue because we want it to transition to the blue sky. Okay, that's much better, much better. Okay, so it's leaning towards the pink more, which I like. And we could actually take, let's just take this. Let's take this, all this color in a corner. Let's just mix it in with this one. I'm sure I might add to it, we'll see. And I'm looking at it and I don't need to add anything to it. I like it as it is, looks great. The transition between this and this is not too intense. And I want the sky to get darker pretty quickly anyway. So this is good. Okay. Once you have that mixed, I'm going to take part of this color. Okay. Something like this. And I'm going to mix the last color here. See what that gives me. And actually, you know, I'm going to add to this one a little bit of burnt umber to take away too much of that blue sky showing. I don't want it to be too blue. And then I'm going to add a little bit more white. A little bit, not a lot, to this one, just a small touch, so that it will be a little bit softer. Very small amount. So I added, as you could see, I added a little bit of burnt umber, very small amount, and some white. It's a small little detail. It's still more on the blue side, as you could see, but it took away a little bit of the brightness of the color straight from the tube, out of the tube, right? It made it more softer. And there you have it. We have the colors and I like it. So we're gonna play with these. I'm gonna clean my palette knife, dab it all the way in your water jar, and quickly clean it off like this. And it's ready for the next use. All right, here are the colors again, up close. So something like this and you'll be good to go. Let's pick up our water jar and our M2 blending brush, dab it all the way in the water. Squeeze part of the water out, not all of it, but part of it. We don't want a lot of water, we just want a little bit in there. Water helps keep acrylics stay wet longer. M2 blending brush, we're going to start with the lightest colors and pick up all your color here. The first one, from lightest to darkest. And we're going to have, remember, half the canvas. Going to have about this much. And if you see bubbles, that's good. You have to make sure it feels like butter on your canvas. If it starts to drag a little bit, you need a little more water. And I'd encourage you guys to just dab it in the water, just the tip. That you don't need a lot of water, just a tip, and then pick up a little bit more paint to make sure you get it running smooth and you have enough water and paint. But if your water starts dripping, that means you have too much water, and I would also encourage to pick up more paint. That's all, not water, but just paint, and then kind of swirl it and equalize it so that it all equal out. So I'm going to dab my brush in water, pick up this next color, orange, and kind of add it right here. And remember, there will be some clouds, so a lot of this is going to be covered. All right, so a lot of this is going to be covered. Some of the sky will be showing through. So about this much. Get your corners in nicely. Okay. And finally, dab your brush in water, your next color, pick it up like this randomly, and let's add this area first. Let's maybe add a little bit of orange here, little orange, more orange. On this side, I want it to be on the orange. On the bottom here, pink orange. Kind of blend it out. Use a little bit of it here more. And then let's just use this color to kind of add it right here on the bottom. That's good enough. Okay. And dab your brush in water. Let's pick up this orange and this pink color, randomly add it here. Like I mentioned, there's going to be clouds or covering a lot of this, so I'm mainly focusing on certain parts that I want it to be blended better. A little more orange. You don't want to bring the paint down too low, so I'm carefully trying to go over those parts. And finally, let's just pick up this blue, mix it in randomly. This is our first base, so we're going to go over these parts again with more little details. There will be clouds here, so I'm not worried about this side right here too much. And finally, dab my brush in water, use the darkest blue. Let's cover all this with this darker blue color. Mix it in, make sure you cover your canvas everywhere nicely. Okay, lightly dab your brush, pick up more of this blue, mix it in here on top. That's good enough for now. Okay, I'm gonna put my blending brush down in the water jar and pick up one of my dry blending brushes and start from the lighter area, swirl gently. And this is a quick process, so this should take about 5 minutes to do, not more than 10, to blend everything. See how nice that works? So here you saw how it transitioned fast, so I'm gonna try to bring that lighter color up. There will be clouds here, so I'm not too worried. But I just want to make it softer right here in the corners. From one color to the next, quickly. Blend those in. And work your way up. And here there's going to be clouds covering a lot of this, so I'm not going to worry too much in here. And go up and start focusing on this side. Barely pressing. Take your time and blend it all in while the paint is still wet. See how that works nicely? There you go. We are done. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and clean my blending brush, and we'll continue from there. Okay, I got some water and I cleaned my M1 blending brush, but I rinsed off my M2 blending brush because I decided to do this process one more time to get a solid background, but also I wasn't a fan of how my red and orange colors turned out. I want it to be a little brighter in color. Now this works. If you like your background, you can leave it. You can move on to the next section. But I want to change it a little bit, and I want to show you how I did this. If you wanted to change it with me, you can, okay? So this part is totally up to you if you want to continue. So I'm going to repeat the process and show you how I do this. So I'm going to create similar colors, except this time I'm changing certain colors, especially the beginning ones. I'm going to make it more red-orange. So these ones will be last colors, will be similar to the ones we already had, but for these ones I want to make it a little bit more on the orange-red side. So I'll explain what I added, and I'm going to repeat the process again. That is why I have a nice dry second M1 blending brush next to me. for things like this. If I didn't like something, I could totally do it again. I have half a thumb amount, maybe almost a thumb amount of white here, not a lot. I want my sky a little bit more on the orange, like a darker color, because when I add my clouds, I want some of those highlights to stand out a lot. So that's why I don't want the background to be too light. So a little less white than the first time, and then each time I'm gonna go less. So half a thumb, and then obviously each time a little less. Okay, to all of these colors. And then here I added medium yellow and then more orange. So this is, hopefully this color is going to be a little more darker in orange than the first one. And then here I added more orange, and so hopefully it will be similar but a little more, maybe darker in orange, brighter in orange. And then here what I did was I didn't add phthalo blue, so I added scarlet red and orange to this one because I wanted to be a bright pink orange color. So that's the color I wasn't a fan of, this one. So now this is scarlet red and a little bit of phthalo blue, right? And then here a touch of red and then more phthalo blue. And I'm gonna probably add burnt umber to this as well. I forgot about that. So I'm going to quickly do that and I'll be good to go. And I'm showing you guys this because I want you guys to know that even to this day, if, you know, I change paintings. I change the way my layout, my colors when I look at it. If I don't like something, I don't get frustrated. I just look at it as an extra layer on top. And the more layers you add, actually, the interesting your painting will look anyway at the end. So a little bit of burnt umber. Okay, I'm going to quickly mix this and show you what I get. And here are the colors. So I did, not to waste paint, I took a little bit whatever I had left here, mixed it with this, and then here mixed it with this and this one as well, so that paint won't get wasted. Okay, so something like this. And now I'm going to put the camera close and do this process real quick. And here we go. Same technique. Dab your brush in water, squeeze part of the water out. Your M2 blending brush, right? And start with your lightest color. And let's repeat the process quickly. So right where we started, you see it's a little darker and more orange, brighter in color. That's much better. Okay, much better. So I'm going to do that again, pick up all the paint, kind of cover this area real quick with this orange. It transitions pretty quickly, so I'm gonna now lightly dab my brush in the water, use this orange, and connect this much better. It's a lot brighter in color, I like it. And actually the second layer makes it look even more softer and more solid. Okay, so a little bit on this side. As you go up, it's gonna transform or go into the reds and blues. So then this one next. Okay, a little bit more orange. Here I want it to be a little more orange and pink. So now we can pick up this color, add it on the bottom real quick. You see how fast I'm doing this? This is a very fast process. Once you catch the technique, you can really create some beautiful blends. So a little more of this color right here in the corner. As it gets away from the sunlight, it gets a little bit more darker. Okay, that's good. I'm going to dab my brush in water, pick up this color, more of this orange red, pink, add it on top, kind of mix it in with the orange, not a lot. Kind of bring it down and go up a little bit. And as you go up, there's going to be some clouds here, so I'm not worried about that. Dab my brush in water and mix it in with the blue. Okay, real quick. Okay, maybe add a little bit of that lighter color on top here, maybe some sky showing through these clouds. And now you can use the darkest color, right? The darkest color blue, and fill it in. Dab your brush lightly in water, pick up more of your darker blue. Maybe go back to the lighter blue, play with color a little bit here, and fill it all in. Okay, that's good enough. All right, so now I'm gonna put my brush down, pick up my dry M1 blending brush, and now I'm gonna start to blend. And you can move around whatever is most comfortable for you. Right, I'm painting awkwardly just to show you guys, but I would actually move around. I have a camera right on the canvas here, so it's kind of awkward a little bit, but I just wanted to show you guys how awesome the blend can work even after the second layer. You see how that works? So much smoother and softer looking. Much better colors too. So there will be clouds here. I'm not too worried about it being perfect. I'm going to move around here. Try to get a softer blend here and bring the paint a little bit up. Not try to bring it too much down. But this is way prettier. I'm much happier with it than the first layer. Okay. Continue on. Try to just focus on. There'll be clouds here, so I'm not worried about this part. Mainly this area here. I want it to look smooth. So gently blending, taking away the brush strokes. In this lighter area here. And finally the darker spots. And there you have it. Much better blend in colors than the first layers. Okay, I will continue to the next part, and we're going to start to sketch out our clouds and get the first layers in. My brushes are clean and I got a new water. I can start fresh. Before we continue, I want to let you know that I just opened my Acrylic Like Oils Academy. If you've been enjoying these tutorials, but your goal is to paint from your own photos and ideas, that's exactly what the Academy was built to help you do. Inside, you will learn my Acrylic Like Oils blending system, follow a clear path from beginner to intermediate artist, and get access to workshops, critiques, Q&A sessions, and our private community. You could learn more using the link on the screen. Now let's get back to painting. This is a good time to take a break or continue on to the next part. I'm going to let my number 8, number 4 brushes sit in the water while we mix paint, because after a few minutes my brushes will become soft, and I like to have a little bit of water working damp with acrylic paint. It creates smooth transitions and makes it look softer. Here are the colors I added. Thumb amount of white, and then a little less medium yellow, and then a small amount of orange right there, and then each time I'm adding less white. Okay. A little bit less each time, and here I added a little bit of scarlet red and then more orange on this one, and then here by itself just white and, as you can see, scarlet red, and then here a little bit of scarlet red and then phthalo blue, and then more phthalo blue and about the same amount of scarlet red right there. And here are the colors. Okay, something like this, and you'll be good to go. This is the base, so it does not have to be perfect. It's almost similar to the sky colors, right? But then we're going to add another layer and another, and until we are seeing more of a softer transition between cloud to cloud, right? And finally, at the end, we're going to be adding our little highlights, and that will really make our clouds pop. I'm excited about it. Okay, so let's start with adding our pink color first. Let's go and add our pink color with water and our number 8 brush. Here we're gonna add, so this is about halfway where the canvas is. I'm gonna probably pick it up a little bit, and so this is half of the canvas. I'm gonna go a little higher, maybe 1.5 inches, and start somewhere here, 1.5 inches. We can always pick it up and just randomly skip some areas, but randomly kind of start to add a little bit of clouds with water and this pink color. And you can make it go up and make it as big as you wish. And have it go up a little bit. Skip this area. There's going to be a bright area in here. So I'm going to probably add the next pink area. Clouds here. Kind of use the corner of your brush with water, and we're just sketching. Remember, there will be a lighthouse somewhere, almost in the middle, maybe in the middle. I'll probably put it to the side a little bit. I don't like things perfectly in the middle, so I'm gonna probably move it to the right a little bit. That'll be later. Let's just focus on the clouds first. So here we're going to continue adding the pink colors. Remember, right here we got some clouds in here, and it's going to blend out. Okay, so continue on here. I'm going to pick it up a little bit, bring it close. Probably have it go up all the way up until here. We can always make it bigger, but for now, let's just bring it up to here randomly. And I know you can't see much of the colors that I'm adding yet, and we will be adding, our highlights to make it pop a little bit. But for now, I'm using this red, making sure I'm happy first with my clouds, the shape of them, right? Getting the big shapes in. So right here, I'm gonna skip this and then bring a big cloud in here. All this is gonna be cloud. And in here, we're gonna start another cloud shape, and it's gonna go up. Probably up to here. It's gonna fade out. Okay, we kind of got the shape. I'm gonna dab my brush in water. I'm gonna use this lighter orange color so you guys can see a little more clearly. For example, right here, right? I'm gonna kind of go in a little bit here so you guys can see more of what I added. Okay, something like that with this orange and some water. And dab my brush slightly in the water. Pick up more of this color. I'm not gonna go in too much in there. Just getting the shape in first. Continue with a little bit of pink here. I'm going to add a little bit more pink in here. Just kind of glazing it first. Okay. I'm going to use a little more pink here. Let's add some. And then let's use this light blue. Let's see what happens here on top. Just randomly add it in. Something like this. And in here as well. Certain parts. And you'll see it's all going to come nicely together. And you'll see the clouds forming. Once we have the first few layers, it's all going to come nicely together. And then finally, let's actually mix it with the red here. I like this red to my clouds. I like them, make it a little cold, but also have that warm, right? So I'm playing with this red and I'm just gonna randomly add it all over here. See how that looks. And finally use the darkest color and add my darker colors in here. Blend it in with the red, why not? You just want to fill it in. Okay, a little bit more of the lighter blue color. Let's add some in here for fun. Right, going on the inside of the cloud so it won't look flat. I'm starting to kind of use lighter and darker highlights, creating highlights and separations from one cloud to the next. I'm just randomly adding it where I think would look best. Okay, the light is coming, probably hitting more of the right side of my clouds, so I'm keeping that in mind. Let's add a little highlight in here using the orange. Actually, I'm going to clean my brush a bit so I won't have too much colors. Little pink and orange. I'm going to add some right in here, maybe a little separation. Right on top. And all these details we're going to go over and make it stand out a little more. And I'm going to go back to the red. Kind of blend that in here so it won't be too strong. So maybe red and blue. See how that looks. Add a little bit of darker blue. Okay. Go back to the red. Let's add a little bit of this darker blue and red on the bottom here. Maybe skip some areas. Add a little more red. Okay, a little bit more red. And I already have some blue in there a little bit, so it blends in to the first color nicely with a little bit of that red and a touch of the darker blue. Okay, clean my brush. And then tap it on the paper towel. And I'm going to use a little bit of this orange and red. Play with those colors real quick. I'm going to add some, let's actually use more red than orange. I'm going to create a few little highlights, separations. And I'm still just sketching it out, stepping back, making sure I like the placements of my clouds. Remember, there's going to be a lighthouse here, so part of this is going to be covered. So I'm not going to spend too much time around here. So a little more red. Bring it down a bit. Let's add a little bit of the darker color, blue, and then we're going to add it on some parts in here. Mix it with the red. So a little bit of that darker color and the red. I'm gonna go over in here. Okay, for now, it's good. All right, we got a rough sketch of the main cloud. So I'm going to use my number 4 brush. Okay, dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel, and I'm going to start to add some highlights. And this is going to look rough. Okay, so we're going to have some bright highlights in here, and I'm randomly going around my clouds. And you can have your highlights look differently than mine. Totally up to each person, okay? Skipping some areas, certain areas I'm blending, and some I'm kind of just dabbing. So with the lightest color, we're gonna continue with this part right here and add all these little details. It's gonna start to come together nicely here. Dab my brush in water lightly. Pick up more paint, and maybe as you go up a little bit, let's mix it with the pink so it won't be too strong. And we're going to go over these highlights with our detail brush later. I'm just getting the main shapes in. Go back to this lightest color, and right underneath I'm going to add some brighter highlights as well. Add some faraway clouds. We're starting to add a little more detail, right? Maybe there's some on the inside. So I'm constantly going back and picking up more paint, and if I feel like my brush is dragging paint, I dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel so it can run smooth. And we're gonna continue and let this kind of go up and fade out. Lightly dab my brush in the water. Let's continue here. Here I'm going to actually clean my brush and use a little bit titanium white. I want it to be not yellow, but more on the pink side, because the clouds are coming in, and I want it to be bright over here, but then transitioning slowly to the cooler colors. So a little bit of pink and white, still keeping it maybe a touch of the yellow, but not too much. I want a light pink with a little bit of yellow, not too much. Maybe a little bit more. Let's use some orange. Randomly play with those colors. This is our first layer, so I'm not too worried. So a little more pink actually. Not worried about it right now, trying to make my clouds perfect. Kind of getting the layout in first. So here I'm going to come down. Add my highlight on top. See how that looks. So a little bit more pink, maybe a little orange here. Add some highlights on the bottom. Let's use a little more orange. Let's see how that looks. Separate some of these. Use a little bit of orange. So I'm going to use a little more pink on top here. I want it to be more on the pink side actually, instead of orange. This is much better. And make it a little thicker here. Start to add a little more pink. As you see, the paint is already drying, so adding that second layer, I'm changing and correcting as you see how it's becoming a little more softer as I blend into those colors that I just added. So even if you add, let's say, orange here or yellow and you don't like it, when you add more layers, it's going to really come together. It's going to create little transparent colors, like right here, some orange, some pink, right, in the sky. It'll just give it nice depth. Okay, a little bit here, some pink on this side. So here I'm going to go back to the orange. This is where I can use a little bit of that. Since it's closer to the warmer colors, we could use more orange. And actually, let's go ahead and squeeze some orange straight out of the tube. Okay, and some scarlet red as well. Let's play with those colors. Make our clouds even more brighter. For example, I'm going to clean up my number 4. Let's start with the orange. With just water and paint, it's going to create certain areas more vibrant in color. So I'm just glazing it gently. I want to see how that looks. See if I like it. If I don't, I'm going to repaint it. I just want to see how that looks first before making big changes. And I don't mind, honestly. I don't mind a little bit of orange, bright color orange. Certain parts, for example, right here, right? Let's make it bright orange. Why not? Why not, right? I want my clouds to have a bunch of color. Okay, a little bit more of the orange and water with a little bit of water, and I'm going to glaze it right in here. I'm going to make this stand out a little more. Let's see how that looks. Just add it in there. Okay, clean my brush. Use a little bit of scarlet red now with water by itself, and I'm going to add a little bit of red here over the blue that we added. Make it a little more darker on the bottom here, just a little bit, and see how that looks before going into my final layers. I want to see, maybe play with a little bit of this pink and make it a little darker in red, like this. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. I like that. Much better. Makes my clouds stand out. A little pink and red. Just going over some areas. A little bit of red in here, glazing it on the bottom. See how that looks. Creating darker shadows. Let's use this darker color now with a little bit more red to create some shadows. I'm going to add a little bit in here. Some separations from one cloud to the next. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush and continue to the brightest color right here, this color, yellow. Let's go back and finish off with the highlights. Got carried away there a little bit, but that's what happens. You can play, you can go back and forth. So a little bit of highlights here on the bottom and let it fade out. Lightly dab my brush in water, use less paint, more water. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit more of this lighter blue right here. I want to continue. I'm gonna bring it out. Probably up to here. And then I'm gonna use the darker color, blue. Just blend those randomly in. Let's add a little bit of pink, a little bit of red maybe, actually, to the bottom here to make it look a little darker. Just gonna bring this out. I want it, just in case if I move my lighthouse right here, I want some clouds and not ending awkwardly. Okay, so we got the shape. I'm gonna step back, and now is the time to make sure you're happy with the layout of your clouds. Okay, this is the time to adjust, correct, make things like, for example, I think I'm gonna, because this is like, I'm not a fan of how this cloud is just kind of straight down. I want to make one a little more fluff here. So I'm going to use this blue, for example. This is the time where you can adjust and make this a little bit more in here, a little bit bigger, and let's use a little bit of that on this side and fade it out. Things like that. Now it's looking a little more fluffier. All right, so now I'm going to quickly go over while I still have some paint here, starting with this pink is almost gone, so I'm going to use a little bit of white and red to get a similar color. It does not have to be exactly the same. And I'm going to go over, I think I made this a little too dark. I'm going to glaze it with water, a little bit of this pink on here, maybe a little bit more red. Just glaze it. And go over certain parts of my sky adding some pink. I want a smoother transition from the blue to the pink, right? Before I start to go into more detail, I want to make sure I'm happy. In here, I'm gonna try to actually use a little bit of this orange with red, a little bit, and try to make it a little darker. Try to change this part a little bit so it won't look too sharp. Glazing a little bit with pink. See how I'm painting a little bit over my orange, but that's okay. Certain parts of the orange is going to stand out and it's going to look great. These are all layers. So I'm just going to glaze the pink over this part. Even here. And go to this little bit of this light blue and the pink. I want to create a softer transition in here. So I'm going to glaze it over. A little bit more of this color. Just glaze it in here. Randomly. Because I'm trying to create, again, the goal is to create a soft transition. See, randomly adding it, but all these colors play together nicely, and then it naturally, you're going to start to see smoother transitions from one color to the next. But the goal is to create warm colors here, going up to cooler colors around. Let's add a little bit of white, red, and this blue. Make these a little lighter in here. My clouds to be a little lighter. Let's see how that looks. Just randomly add a little bit of this blue, but I want it to be a little lighter. Maybe with red here on this side. Okay, you see all these layers now. You're starting to see some separations. Things are happening naturally. That's the fun thing about clouds, is you just keep adding and adding, and then little by little, I'm going to make this a little lighter in here as well. Use a little bit of pink, so maybe a little bit of this with white. Okay, I'm going to lightly dab my brush in water so it won't be too dry. So a little bit of this with the blue. Let's add it in here. And I'm going to use a little bit of red. Maybe this darker color. Kind of go in here, add some darker glazes. Blend those randomly in together. Maybe go in a little bit on some areas like this for fun. Let's see how that looks. some little separations happening maybe in here. Okay, so a little bit more of red and this darker blue. Let's add some separations in here. Here's what we got so far. So we got a few layers and it's starting to look more solid and softer. We're gonna apply one more layer, mix some new colors. This is a good time to take a break or continue. So I'm gonna mix similar colors and then we're gonna really start to make it even smoother, get all the highlights in and the shadows and finalize it. But before I will do that, I wanna actually quickly place a sketch of where my lighthouse is going to be, because I don't wanna start adding details somewhere right here a lot and then realize I'm painting it over, right? So I'm just gonna quickly add a placement, and I forgot to mention, but I'm gonna use masking tape. This is like an inch masking tape, anything like this. And what I'm gonna do is take about this much, and you can make it as big and small as you wish, totally up to you, right? Or you can even have the lighthouse in the middle, wherever you feel like would look best. I'm gonna do it a little off to the right. I think things in the middle just looks kind of cheesy. I feel like a little bit to the right will make it more interesting. So I'm going to add, maybe, I'm guessing, I'm gonna have the lighthouse go probably to the top right here. And some of this is gonna be covered. So this is where the horizon line is going to be somewhere in here. So a lot of this, about an inch or 2 inches down right here, it's gonna be covered by rocks and water. So I'm gonna just kind of go at an angle to the left. I'm gonna kind of go at an angle. So this is straight. I'm gonna go to the right a little bit and at an angle like this. And press this side right here, right? And you could do the same thing on the other side. And you can make it as big, as small as you wish, right? I'm gonna make it about this big. See how much I'm covering? Maybe make it a little smaller, like this. But you see how much I'm covering this part? If I spent a lot of time detailing these areas, then and then I'm painting over it, right? It's good practice, but I think to save time, I'm gonna quickly just sketch out my lighthouse, go over these with one color, and I'm gonna mix like a bluish gray color as the base. It'll be fast, and so once I get my sketch of my lighthouse, I'll show you what I get. All right, so here's my sketch. I carefully went over everything and quickly added this part right here. So you could totally use the tape to go all the way down, and then somewhere about an inch down, you can create yours. And yours could be a little bigger, smaller. It does not have to look like mine. As long as the proportions are there, you're good to go. And I just mixed some white, a little bit of phthalo blue, burnt umber, and scarlet red. It doesn't really matter whatever paint you have left. We just want a base color right here so that we won't spend time working on the background clouds. So here I decided here's the color. With my flat brush, I went over, painted carefully, and with a detail brush, I kind of went over these parts. But here I decided to actually go up here from this all the way, connect those. On this side as well, and move around, see what is best and most comfortable for you. Okay, something like this. We're gonna make it more cleaner. But I'm gonna cover this part real quick with water and the paint that I have as the base. So that I can kind of see the image a little bit better. And it's another thing I forgot to mention is it's always better to add your lighthouse smaller, and then you can always make things bigger. That goes with anything. Let's mix colors and finalize the clouds. All right, so we got titanium white straight out of the tube by itself in case we need to play with that. And then half a thumb amount of white here, some medium yellow, and then here about the same amount of white and orange, a little less orange right here, and then less white over here, and then scarlet red and a touch of orange. And then here we have a little bit more white than this one. I want it to be a lighter pink, and then red about the same amount. And then here about the same amount of white, touch of red, less red, and then phthalo blue here. And then more phthalo blue, scarlet red, and a small amount of white for the dark color. Let's mix these and see what we get. And here are the colors up close. We got the bright yellow, and then orange, and then this should have been next, but that's okay. This is a little darker red, pink, orange, and then pink, lighter blue here. Remember, we added a little red to make it more on a violet. We want a smoother transition from these colors. And then we have a very dark one for the dark shadows. I did add a little more scarlet red to this one, that's all. And then I also took a little leftover paint that I have here. You don't have to do this, but I just didn't want to let the paint go to waste. And I made it a little bit brighter to this one, but it's still pretty dark, okay? So something like this, and you'll be good to go. So I had my brushes sit in the water, and now I'm going to repeat the process, basically going over and laying out my colors and creating my clouds even more softer. So let's start number 4 brush for this part, because we're going into and adding a little bit more detail. So I tap it on the paper towel so it wouldn't be too much water, but I do have water in there. So I'm going to work transparently because I do like my background color showing through. I'm just trying to create that extra, my second layer of colors over the top of this one, so it will look more, 3D, like it's not just flat. Okay, so I'm just adjusting now and even going down a little bit here, creating my little clouds. With this red, orange. I want it to kind of softly transition. Maybe even add some clouds in here. This is where you can start to add a little more detail. Okay. Now that I have the placement of everything here, I can go in, play, change things around. I'm going to do that and have fun. So this is the final layers we're going to be adding here, and then with a detail brush, we're going to really make it a little more cleaner. So I'm going to try to connect some of these in the background with the pink. Okay, maybe even add some in here. Totally up to you. So a little water and this paint. I'm using the corner of my brush. Maybe add some in here. Even if you go over your lighthouse, that's totally fine. At least now we know where to stop. Okay, a little bit on this side. And here, I'm going to try to use a little bit of this orange. Make it lighter on this side. Maybe there's some clouds behind here. Behind this cloud, right? So I'm glazing it because I still have some water in my brush, so just add the orange. I want to make this a little brighter in here. Down my brush lightly in the water. use a little bit of pink, lighter pink on this side. Go back to the orange. Dab my brush slightly in the water. Tap it on the paper towel. With water, I'm just swirling. Trying to make it look softer. You see how that works? With a little bit of water and paint, you can create these soft transitions. Let's add a little bit of more orange. Make this a little brighter behind here, a little bit. So in here, I'm going to go back to this pink. I want to connect this cloud. I think I'm going to connect it in here so that this won't be so awkward. I'm going to go use a little bit of this red, and let's use this blue to make it a little darker. More red here, right there. I'm going to create that separation. This is where I'm adding these little fine details and adjusting, right? And then you'll see once we start to add highlights, it's going to look even cleaner. So let's go back to the orange. Let's start with there with some water. And I'm going to go over some of these parts. Gently use your corner and kind of randomly add it, trying to create a soft transition here. Same thing here. You see how that works? This third layer makes everything softer. So take your time, and if you feel like it's dragging, dab your brush in the water, tap it on a paper towel. I do that often. That's what helps keep making it look soft, you know, with glazing some water and paint, it looks more softer transitions. Okay, let's add a little bit of pink now. I like to play with color. These are kind of similar in a way, this light orange and pink, but I want to add some pinks. I don't want it to all look orange. So that's why I'm going back and forth. Add a little bit of pink in here. Randomly, let's add some separation for fun. Barely any paint. You see how that works? Now we're creating a little bit more depth when we're going in. Lightly dab my brush in water. I'm going to mix a little bit of this orange and pink. Get an in-between color. This is where I'm going to shape out a little bit of my cloud a little better. Use the corner of your brush, swirl. You can bring it down as far as you wish. I mean, you don't want to cover this whole dark area, but just, it does not have to be like exactly like what I have here, right? a little bit in here. Let's go back to the pink. Lightly dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, mix it with pink a little bit more on the orange side because we're getting closer to the warmer colors. Create some separations in there. Just going to use orange now. Some pink. Clean my brush. Add a few little details inside my cloud. And I'm going back and forth with just these colors here first. I'm going to use a little bit of a darker red and go in here. Go back to the light pink and make this a little darker in here. I mean lighter, brighter. And if you don't like something, you can always go back and change it, right? So I'm just playing with color, seeing how my clouds, and I'm always swirling and not adding everywhere, but I'm trying to create that flow. For example, this cloud, I want to connect it here, right? I want to make sure everything's connecting and not just randomly added. Use a little bit of this orange. Let's see how that looks. And that's how you create layers. Okay, I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to add too much inside. I want to keep it very soft looking. So I'm only doing it to certain parts. For example, right here, make it a little brighter to make my painting more look 3D. Let's use a little bit of this red. And I'm constantly kind of stepping back and looking, seeing how it looks. Back and forth and making sure I am happy with everything. So now I'm going to go back to, let's use this pink and orange again. More on the orange side with some water. Remember this cloud right here? And then go over it one more time. And maybe I'm going to add some pink color. Let's use this red. Let's start there with water. And you don't need to add this if you don't want, but maybe there's some clouds. All right, let's bring a little bit more of the red, maybe a little blue, light blue. In here, I want to kind of change this. I want to create a softer transition between the cool colors and the warm colors. So I want to connect those. That's why I'm going to use a little bit of red or blue. And maybe use a little bit of a darker blue. Okay, and I use more red. All right, let's continue. I'm going to use this red again and start to go in a little bit in here. Skip some areas because I do like that darker red in here that we added. But I just want to add those little details. See, just by adding that made my clouds pop in here. That's the goal. So I'm going to use a little bit of orange and pink. Little bit of orange and pink again. Let's see how that looks in here. Let's use orange. More orange in here. A little bit more orange around here. I'm gonna make this a little bit, add a little more clouds here for fun. You could use a little bit of the darker red. Clean my brush. And basically, as I go in here, I'm gonna start to play with cooler colors, right? It's away from the warm area. I'm gonna play with a little bit of pink, starting off with that, and go over these clouds that we added, basically going over them again. So a little more pink. And then some pink and this light blue. Light blue, I'm gonna add it, glaze it in here. Certain areas with water and paint. A little bit of pink and blue. Maybe a little darker blue here. brush in water, use a little bit of orange and pink. I'm going to create this softer transition. Between the pink and the orange. Okay, so basically totally up to you how much you want to add. Back and forth, right? Creating your highlights and your shadows. So then if you want to darken some areas, you can use a little bit of this red and this blue. And let's just use more red a little bit and this darker color. And I'm just trying to kind of match it to the background. Swirl it and blend it in with the colors you just added. Right? It's a lot of back and forth. So take your time. Create your separations. Okay. Make this a little softer looking. So I'm using more water than paint. And because I just added those colors, it's fresh, so it's still easy to move the paint around. Water reactivates it and it blends in very nicely, softer. Okay, so a little bit of lighter colors if you don't want certain areas to be rough looking. All right, so just glaze it over with a little bit of water and it blends in with the background colors. I'm going to add one more, little bit of a highlight in here. And I'm going to clean my brush, use the same brush, number 4, but just clean it out quickly and then use this lightest color that we have here. And go back with the highlights, the brightest areas. And this is where you can spend some time. I'm only going to quickly add where the biggest areas of the highlights are, and then I'll go in with my detail brush to get those finer details. Okay, see that by adding that already, makes it even brighter. And I'm carefully doing this because I don't want to overdo it. Continue on this side. And honestly, with even the detail brush, you don't even have to go over with your detail brush if you don't want, right? This works as well if you carefully do it. And I'm barely pressing the canvas. I'm gonna make this area super bright in here. So we're gonna come nicely together here. Make our clouds really pop. That is the goal. Just take your time. You could turn on some music and work on this section. Dab my brush in the water because I feel like it's dragging, not running smooth. Lightly dab my brush in the water. Again, with less paint and more water. Hey guys, quick question. Have you ever wished to look at your own photo and know exactly how to paint it? That's exactly why I created Acrylic Like Oils Academy. It's designed to help acrylic painters move beyond following tutorials and develop the skills to create their own paintings with confidence. You can learn more at the link I put here on the screen. There will also be a link in the description. Alright guys, let's get back to the lesson. And finally, let's go with a detail brush and dab it in the water and use this color, same one. Swirl it, right? And we're going to add some brighter highlights in here, for example, smaller ones. Barely any. And just kind of randomly let it connect. Don't make it too perfect. Okay, certain areas will be brighter than the other, but you see how that works? These fine little details will really make your clouds start to pop. In here, remember this cloud? I'm going to add some in here. Okay, continue that. Even in here, I'm going to make this a little brighter. You could add some little ones inside, right? Totally up to you. We're creating layers. So a little less yellow. I'm going to add a little highlight in here. And make this have some in the back floating out. Okay, continue on with this color and maybe even in here add a few little highlights so it could pop a little better. And let it fade out. Not too much, just a little bit of separation. Okay, see how that works? And this is where you can spend some time. And this is where you can use a little bit of white actually, right by the sun here. It's going to be the brightest, so I'm going to glaze a little bit of that white so it could pop even more. Randomly go over the top of this area. And same thing here with just the white. We're going to add a few brighter areas and let it fade into the yellow. A little bit of yellow again. Let's go inside. And you see how I'm just trying to create these transitions that are softer and then fading out into the inside of the clouds because I don't want to add too much detail on the inside. I like how it's soft looking. And I'm going to add a few more with the yellow right in here. Make some of these pop a little bit more. Little ones. We don't want to add too much, but just a few set parts will make it prettier, I think. Alright guys, this is where we're going to stop for part 1. And if you want to keep going and finish the entire Lighthouse today, I've put the rest of the lesson inside my Acrylic Like Oils Academy, and it's available now. The complete lesson is almost 7 hours long, and you'll also get the free reference photo and color guide I'm working from. And more importantly, if you're getting to the point where you no longer want to follow tutorials, that's really what we're working toward in the Academy. I want to help you understand blending, color, light and shadows, depth, composition, and all those little decisions I make while I'm painting. So eventually you can make those decisions for yourself. I'll put the link down below if you'd like to continue this painting with me. I hope you enjoyed part 1, and hopefully I'll see you inside for the rest of the Lighthouse. Please be sure to like and subscribe and share with those that would be interested in learning how to paint with acrylics. I appreciate all of you guys for doing that. Alright guys, take care and God bless.